Well, Charles, here we are again. You are overseas, back in your amazing Charles Ortel Presidential Library. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. How are you doing, Jason? You got quite the spread yourself there.
I'm
You know,
well. My AI Presidential Library. But today, Charles, I don't know if you've seen this movie where I guess he gets amnesia or she has amnesia or
oh yeah,
something, and they
oh
go on
yeah. It's
51st dates. But we're talking about the 51st states.
it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. And around the world, what's happened is Donald Trump for decades has been ridiculed, right? And it's been the cool thing to do used to be, he's just orange man, he's bad, he's an idiot. All he did is he just took his grandfather's money and increased the pile of family money. Nothing to him. And had he actually remained in power, I actually think he would have been less successful in his second term than he will now be in his third term, because what they did to him during what Hillary and Obama, and now it seems we know that Comey is dirty as fuck. We thought he was bad, but now we've learned just how atrocious he is. What that team did to Trump was reprehensible. What they're trying to do to Trump, and still the guy, he survived 2 assassination attempts, all these lawsuits, all the lawfare, all the defamation, and he's standing stronger. And the dude is 78 years old.
And all he eats is like Kentucky Fried Chicken and Diet Coke. It's amazing. Somebody should study him medically.
Maybe we need to switch to that. But so the point is that Donald Trump, I think he had his first cabinet meeting, I guess you're today, and it was amazing to me. Some of the dynamics of that room. Typically, I understand that only cabinet secretaries or the president, the vice president can sit at the table, right? And here's Elon Musk, who's not a cabinet secretary, but he happens to be the richest guy on the planet, willing to stand up as all these other people are sitting down.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's standing up and addressing these people with humility, with precision. He had a gift that my father had as well. My father could take any unbelievably complicated problem and explain it in simple terms, not as he's lecturing down to you, but just he break the problem up and make it easy to understand. You have that gift as well, Jason, in technology and other matters.
Yes.
But here's Musk standing up and doing that. A little odd that he's wearing that hat. Generally, you're not supposed to wear. Well, yeah, the shirt. What does the shirt say?
Tech support.
Yeah. But to be this humble, if Pete Buttigieg were in this role, first of all, he would have hired 6 consulting firms to give him a script, and he would have, lectured down to everybody. And he's
not do anything for 3 years.
Right. Yeah. Build 6 charging stations for $50 billion or whatever he did. But here's a guy who doesn't need to do this, who's not being paid to do this, who truly believes in America. Here's an immigrant to our country who in one generation, starting with nothing or with little, has become the richest man on the planet. What a commercial for the United States of America, right? Come to our country, gifted people like Elon Musk. You can start with very little and end up potentially in 30 years, just like Elon Musk, maybe even richer than he is, and more successful. But to come in from the outside with no government experience and quickly discern that the government is a fucking joke. This idea that we've had to listen to Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and all these assholes pontificate about the successes, what they're fighting on our behalf. Our federal government doesn't have computer systems. Are you fucking kidding me? This isn't, Upper Volta.
They got a mine. It's buried in the mine.
This isn't Easter Island, for Christ's sake. This is the United States of America. We've got tech giants. We've got a government that's paying for software licenses and not using things. We've got a government where a whole bunch of people around it are prepared to object to Elon Musk sending that email out, trying to figure out whether these employees actually exist. What's objectionable about that? The outrage should be the other way around. where was the media for 50 fucking years on this? Right?
They
I
were
mean,
like heads buried in the mud at Easter Island.
right. With dicks attached, possibly. But it's just ridiculous. And then I love the way all these people, Jeff Mason or whatever the guy's name is, or there's various people, the White House Correspondents Association, how dare you change the rules of the game? Fuck off. You guys have gotten every major story wrong. The system was set up, remember, under the previous administration, we had the historic lesbian, the historic lying lesbian, first black historic lying lesbian,
Like
who would who would cancel press credentials of anybody who dared to ask a reasonable question, and only have the meatheads and the bobbleheads and the boneheads to ask questions which were, how great is our president? Isn't the first lady beautiful? What about Hunter? I guess he is the smartest. What a painter. I mean, these journalists who protected Biden, when it was obvious to you and to me and to other citizen journalists that Joe Biden was five cans short of a six pack. I mean, he was out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and Karine Jean-Pierre announced her next major, like, is she going to be on? I'm surprised they didn't replace Joy Reid with her.
I don't think anybody watches MSNBC.
I think exactly. If you perfect job for her.
I think if you canceled CNN's contract with all the airports, you'd be down to 16 viewers.
Yes, I mean, drunk people at bars who have nowhere to go for 5 hours watching CNN.
I mean, Latrine is going to end up either president of Harvard or one of these left wing, for the moment, well endowed universities that can snap up this kind of talent. She's either going to end up there, or she's going to end up at that bar with John Edwards. So I used to be
or something. No, doesn't somebody like her typically go to just a talk show?
The Spew. Maybe she can join Al Sharpton on his show. But I mean, it's just so obvious. This is why I love contrasts. When you contrast the first X days of the Biden presidency with this, and you're wondering, what the fuck was Joe Biden didn't give a press conference apparently until March 25th of 2021.
Wow.
Right. So, somebody was contrasting the number of questions that have been asked of various presidents and, to a recent time period. Barack Obama was 161. Donald Trump was 1009. And as Musk points out, that's before you think through how many of the questions that Obama got he'd seen before they were asked. And in the case of Trump, it would appear, I mean, Trump is completely open here. Yeah. Letting reporters, I'm sure not for the whole cabinet meeting, but in for the cabinet meeting, and other and all these gaggles before he goes on trips. And that way, Joe Biden. Somebody has posted a clip of what it would look like at Trump Gaza with Putin in a bathing suit, Trump in a bathing suit, Musk would do I don't know what, Trump's hilarious view of Gaza.
Musk, I don't know what.
Zipping around in a jet. I don't know.
Baby mama drama. People were upset about this video, I think.
Which video?
Trump's social media garners pushback from Arabs. He's making it rain in Gaza.
Again, I think the business model for the Middle East should not be, let's just suck the oil and gas out of the ground. I mean, if you go to Dubai, which I know you've been to, more than I have probably, nights on there. I've only been there overnight a few nights, but that's a place that thrives because it's become a financial, and some would say a dubious financial capital. But there has to be a business model for the Middle East beyond perpetual fighting. And at one point, it was a thriving collection of cities scattered across the Middle East, as people traded out to India and China and with Europe over land and over water as required. But so far, I have to say, the cabinet has only been, I think, seated in total for several days. And look what these people are accomplishing. There's something on my Twitter feed about some Mexican claiming that the situation in Tijuana, right across the border from San Diego, is already calm. That the cartels have already left. I don't know if that's really true,
Huh.
but I think we're getting back to normalcy here with the potential to not just be great, to be, I think, extraordinary is better than great. I like to make America extraordinary again.
That's a
And
big hat.
gigantic hat, right? It's a Melania Trump hat, right? That's an extraordinary hat.
Neia.
But one thing that's starting to happen now, which is interesting, is more and more focus seems to be on the business model, the crooked business model for charity fraud and corruption, or for corruption as happens through charity fraud. And an extension of that business model beyond charities is decision by people who can instantly make you a superstar, to make you a superstar when you're a piece of shit. And an example of that would be Bill Clinton's book, My Lies, My Life, which is an atrocious book, and for which he was paid, I think, $10 or $14 million. I forget the exact number when you count the hardback and the paperback and the audiobook and all that. And going way back, Ulysses Grant, was I guess he was technically bankrupt, or the equivalent of bankrupt, by getting involved with some crooked 19th century swindler. But Ulysses, being an honest man, decided, really worked till his dying day to write his memoir. And that memoir, some argue, I have a copy of it, is an old copy of it, is an extraordinary memoir. Bill Clinton's is trash, and Barack Obama's is pitiful. Frankly, it really is. We talked. I don't know if you want to get into birth certificate stuff on this show or the paid one. Okay. Well, I'll put my glasses on because I can't read a damn thing without them. And we have here.
I like the word swindler, Charles.
Yeah. So you see swindlers in the. Let's see. I think it's page 690.
More amicus filings in the Eric Adams case.
Is that right? While I work. Why don't you talk for a bit while I work to find this?
Well, the other thing that was interesting that was filed in the Eric Adams case today was his attorney, also Elon Musk's attorney, Alex Spiro, filed a motion to dismiss, which he would not file if the case was being dropped. So something strange is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Remember last time I talked about how in Barack Obama's book, and I don't mind spending much more than $40 on a book, but it really pained me to spend $40 years ago on this piece of garbage. But on page 684, this sentence, of course it has. I mean, this book is the most eye-laden book. I mean, I even think the first sentence of the book begins with, yes, I in the first line, I in the next line. I mean, the man just needs to think less about using the word I. But anyway, finally, I decided, not his team, I decided I'd had enough. I called in White House counsel Bob Barr and told him to go ahead and obtain the long-form birth certificate, not from an electronic file, but from its home in a bound volume. I don't know what's in this background noise. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. But you see in this sentence, and told him to go ahead and obtain the long-form birth certificate from its home in a bound volume. That is not what we have. That is not what we have.
Which book is that in?
Promised Land, page 683.
Huh. It's not in the Kindle version.
It doesn't say it that way? What does it say there?
Well, when I search for bound volume on the Kindle version, let's see, maybe it is.
Well, that's what
There it
you.
is.
Okay.
Okay, Bob Bauer. I told him to go ahead and obtain the long form birth certificate from its home in a bound volume. There it is, somewhere deep in the bowels of Hawaii's
Okay.
Vital Records Office. So he's searching the bowels, Charles,
Right,
as he would.
but he went public on April 27th. That's the date that he went public and majestically went into the White House press room and produced this. I don't know if he produced a paper copy of the electronic file, but the thing that is up in the National Archives is certainly not a copy of something that was a long form birth certificate in a bound volume. It just isn't.
Right. We've never seen that. There's one other interesting detail that we came on to maybe last night that I don't think I've ever heard anybody else speak about. I mean, we've been through that video that shows this thing as a layered document. We've looked at how this one is black when the rest of the date is red, and spoken about how a stamper really couldn't do that. The East Africa thing. But there's another aspect to this that we've just realized, which is, this might be a little difficult for people to follow, but when we look at the document properties here, it says here.
Explain that for the uninitiated, what that means.
Yeah. So this is the creation date. It says 4/27/2011. So April 27th, 2011, somebody created this. But the thing that's anomalous about this document is normally when I downloaded this the other day on our show from whitehouse.gov. Normally, the act of downloading it should make this modified date change to today or whatever day you download it. So there's something unusual about this that I can't really explain.
Well, and why I think that's very significant. I am preparing now to write this book. I've been researching what you have to do when you cite internet-based sources into a serious book, and you have to get into that. When was the thing created, and when was it last modified, and stuff like that. And this is a comment from the former president, the historic former president of the United States. It's not a small issue.
Right.
Right? It's a huge issue. And if I were an editor and working on this work, as they call them, and publishing this work, I'd want to make sure it was right, because I would assume that we're going to sell a lot of copies, and that some nut like me is going to, or you, is going to look at this and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. And about this birther controversy, everybody got together when the USAID was. And remember, Barack Obama is a literal child of USAID. His mother worked for USAID. So we didn't know until recent days how extensive, and we may not still know, just how extensively the US government has been paying off journalists around the world, either not to investigate things that should be investigated, or to target people who shouldn't be targeted, to swing elections, to engage in regime change, to make people who are dunderheads look like they're worth, paying 40 million or 65 million or whatever he got for his book deal with Michelle. Yeah. We didn't know all that. Now we know, and we will soon know even more if Doge, continues the course it's on. We can assume that in a case like birtherism, courageous Jerry Corsi, who incidentally was encouraged to look into the subject by the Clinton camp, according to Jerry himself.
Really? Who in the Clinton camp?
I forget if he told us, but he told me personally several times.
Wait, whoa. So look at that, Charles. So that's known to the Clintons. They just plant it on Corsi and kind of sprinkle some stuff out there so he can find it.
And then they demagogue him. Right? Then they go after Corsi. I mean, Corsi, the power of the Clintons, the erstwhile power of the Clintons, the former power of the Clintons was so large. Corsi told me repeatedly that he had in all of his major books Sean Hannity would, when the book was published, Sean Hannity would interview. Sean had agreed to interview Corsi for Where's the Birth Certificate and had promoted it. And that got the attention, I think, of Drudge, with a red siren that this book is coming. And immense pressure was put on Hannity and Fox, and they didn't interview Corsi, as had been the custom ever since. So how many hooks do the Clintons have into Fox? And we see that Fox is, a shadow of its former self, right? There are some good people at Fox, but it's not what it used to be. And go ahead.
Not what it used to be, and
so other news sources have been created. I mean, this idea that people like you and like me are truly searching for the truth are going to want to listen to a panel where we have to have, on the one hand, we have, let's say, Representative Comer, and when he was still a representative, that we would enjoy hearing Shifty Schiff's counterpunch. Fuck that. I don't care what Adam Schiff says. He's a proven liar. I really don't care. I was Senator Warren. Let her go back to her fake reservation and write another cookbook. I mean, and that's another thing, by the way. There's somebody, I'm going to slaughter his name, and forgive me for doing it. I think it's something like Peter Bernnerger or something like that. And it's a serious person who runs a political campaign, a watchdog group, who has discovered a way, just how these politicians illegally pay themselves and illegally use government funds to advance their campaigns. And he's got
their wives to work for nonprofits.
No, they get fake donors to say
that's what Eric Adams is accused of.
Right, but this guy's got chapter and verse on it. So this situation is far worse than even I assumed. I said back in 2016 that I thought the Clinton Foundation stood at the middle, in the core of $100 billion fraud. We could be looking here, if we count the wealth, the cumulative wealth that has been created, the illegal wealth that's been created for people, you could be looking here at more like $10 trillion and $20 trillion of wealth created through fraud.
Wow. Amazing.
Right. And it's just the people, the most egregious people. The Clintons are, I think, among the most egregious. Soros is among the most egregious. Bill Gates is egregious. We need enough of this. We've been studying this shit for, I don't know, this is now my 10th year of concentrating, 11th year, actually, I guess.
Well, and you see, what I was going to say was, when I came in 8 years ago, you and Corsi and Roger Stone were sort of old hat at going after the Clintons. And I think they thought, okay, Hillary's going to win. We're going to 86 these pro-Trump Clinton enemy people. They had the Peter Smith emails for you, all the stuff they did to Roger Stone for him, and Corsi, got him all jammed up. He was in court with Larry and everything. They wanted to take you guys out.
Yeah. Well, and I know that we have questions about Michael Flynn, but he's alleging that Comey tried to have him killed.
I don't know if I believe anything he says. And also, what's this story about Comey having some kind of honeypot thing?
Well, again, as I understand it, I mean, obviously, I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to negotiate order. I don't have any interest in working in government or actually in working at all. But my understanding is that given the immense power that we see in the, I think, illegal prosecution of the January 6th crowd, given how much power the government has, given the fact that most juries many juries in many places are going to give weight to prosecution statements, constraints were put in place to ensure that J. Edgar Hoover didn't reincarnate himself as Lego man James Comey. But now we learn that James Comey may have, on his own, just decided to target the Trump campaign in an election cycle. And with the brilliant idea, Trump likes pretty women. Let's get some pretty women. Let's insert them in the campaign. Let's see what we can instigate. That is so far out beyond the pale. James Comey needs to, he needs to be in a jail cell after a fair trial, of course,
But
with
do they have
somebody who
evidence of this, Charles? I'm sorry to
there's
interrupt you.
a whistleblower.
Huh.
Yeah, is coming forward with this. An internal whistleblower is coming
Put
forward
down
claiming,
the Star Wars Legos. Time to go to jail.
trying to, yeah, get ready to be, in a jail cell with multiple bubbas who don't like you.
Isn't it weird for an adult? You got the New York Times coming over. Why didn't he choose to move those Legos out of the picture? That is weird, Charles.
He is one weird fuck.
Isn't
And
it?
again, one thing that the Constitution doesn't contemplate, many things it did contemplate, but one thing it doesn't contemplate is this idea of two career couples. And here, Comey's wife and daughters, very active politically, all anti-Trump. Okay, you can't have that in the head of the FBI. You just can't have that, right? The head of the FBI and the deputy director have targets on their back. Every criminal scumbag wants to figure out how to corrupt those two people in particular, as well as U.S. attorneys and other people in key jurisdictions like the Southern District of New York, D.C., L.A., Chicago, Miami, etc. These people, you got to assume that the bad guys are going to try to get their hooks into these people, and it's just crystal clear that Comey and everyone who signed. I don't know that Comey signed the 51 former intelligence
I don't think
person.
he was on that.
But the people, the 51 crowd, and Comey, and people in that crowd who started with nothing and now have vast wealth, they are all, in my view, prime candidates for having the full force of the law thrown against them, very publicly, very aggressively, so hard that it really hurts them and their families. Because that's the only way the rising crowd of fraudsters is going to understand you can't do this shit in America. You want to do it in the UK until they get their act in order, move over there. But it's not happening in our country.
Yeah. Now, Charles, let's carry on this conversation just in a few minutes here in the First Amendment Forum. People are going to be able to join us there on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We're going to talk more about this cabinet meeting and also Russia, all kinds of stuff. So stay with us, everybody.